Welcome to Decades of Horror, the 1980s.
It says here the body showed signs of cannibalism. Well, that's what it says, Chief.
This is episode 216, recorded September 21st, 2022.
Gruesome Magazine.
I am your host, Jeff Mohr, and this podcast is about horror films released between 1980 and 1989. Each episode, my co-host Bill Mulligan, Chad Hunt, and Crystal Cleveland, and I will tackle another classic or not so classic film from this radical, gory, influential, and gruesome decade. On this podcast, we start by giving a few details of the film we're covering, and then we have our tagline segment and first impressions of the movie, and then we'll kind of move off into general discussion about whatever trips our triggers, hopefully relating to the film. With me tonight are my incredible co-hosts. First up is Crystal Cleveland, the living dead girl and co-host of the Gruesome Magazine podcast. Crystal, good to see you.
Good to see you. Did you say co-ghosts? It sounded like you said co-ghosts. You did? Is this just for it's spooky season?
Yeah, we do that on Classic here all the time, and I
like it.
You know,
it's
but
nice.
You're good. You got the right colors going there. Orange.
Yep. Yeah. See, let's see if I bring this down. Yeah. So see.
All right.
Oh, my bad. Oh, I still just have red. Well, it's still technically red. Now you can see all my wires. Oops.
There we go. Also joining us is Chad Hunt, comic book artist and co-host of Decades of Horror, the All of Them, and a writer-director with Cannibal Productions. How you doing, Chad?
I'm feeling like I'm a little peckish and I want to shoot everybody for no reason.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
That's fair.
I get it. Last but not least is Bill
Glad
Mulligan.
Somebody did.
Writer, director, and special effects guru, and co-host of Decades of Horror, the 1970s. Bill, what up?
Well, what up? It's almost October. So,
it is.
Yeah.
It is.
It was 90 degrees today, so whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? It was 90 something here yesterday, and today it was 70. So
good. I hope it's heading our way.
One day summer, and so anyway. So spoiler alert, we're just gonna not filter what we say at all. So if you haven't seen this, you should check it out. And I forget, where was it playing? Tubi right now?
Mm-hmm. Tubi.
I believe it's on Tubi.
Yeah.
Tubi or not Tubi.
Yeah.
Tubi or not Tubi. So our film this episode is Cannibal Apocalypse from 1980.
If you don't like that title, there's about 12 others. So
yeah, that's right. And there's our lead, John Saxon, showing off his grit and determination as a captain of a Green Beret squad, apparently. This one is directed by Antonio Margheriti, but he was billed as Anthony M. Dawson, as usual. Written by Margheriti and Dardano Sacchetti, also billed as Jimmy Gould. So it's like directed by Anthony Dawson and written by Anthony Dawson and Jimmy Gould. And the story
could be more American than that. I mean, boy.
Yeah. The cast includes John Saxon, Elizabeth Turner, Giovanni Lombardo Radici as John Morgan, billed as John Morgan, Cynthia De Carolis as billed as Cindy Hamilton, Tony King, Wallace Wilkinson, Ramiro Oliveros, billed as Ray Williams, and May Heatherly. It was filmed in Decatur and Atlanta, Georgia, with some scenes in Rome. I think mostly the sewer scenes. There were some other ones, but I don't remember which ones they were.
Yeah, they have much better sewers in Rome.
Yeah, can you imagine you go all the way to Rome just to film in a sewer?
Yeah, that's weird.
Is that Dookie?
It
Oh, I can't wait till we go shoot in Rome. Hold on there, Scooter.
It was released on August 24th, 1980 in Italy and September 18th, 1981 in the U.S. The synopsis is mentally unstable Vietnam vets who were held captive by the Vietcong come back to America after being rescued, carrying a dangerous virus that turns people into cannibals when bitten.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, Cannibal Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
So Bill mentioned some also known as, I didn't put them on here because it took so much room, it just wiped out the slide. But this thing has been released and re-released, and who knows what all. The original title was Apocalypse Domani in Italian, which means Apocalypse Tomorrow. Maybe a play on the just released Apocalypse Now.
Oh, Apocalypse Tomorrow. Yeah.
Next,
well, thanks for the heads up, guys.
In Germany, it was Asphalt Cannibalen, which I am assuming is Cannibals in the Street or Cannibal Street or Cannibal in the Street. I don't know. I didn't look it up. IMDb listed as Cannibals in the Streets, but most of the U.S. releases have it as Cannibal Apocalypse. You know, if you buy a DVD or Blu-ray or whatever. Cannibal Massacre, Cannibals in the City, Invasion of the Flesh Hunters, Savage Apocalypse, Savage Slaughterers, and just the Slaughterers.
Now the print I watched actually had a title Savage Apocalypse, but it was obviously this movie.
Oh wow.
So, yeah.
All right. So that's our basic details. And it's now time for
everybody's favorite.
Taglines with Chad.
Thank you, Buddy Rich.
I you know,
shirt off. Wow.
I felt like it was just sort of the it was the closest thing I could find to the Italian soundtrack in some of the places.
Yeah,
but
it does have that kind of music.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This soundtrack is like when it's time to get scared and excited and have action, you get funk.
Yeah.
Not really.
Here's
jazz,
the saxophone.
More funk. Yeah. All right. So Chad, let's hear the taglines for Cannibal Apocalypse.
The taglines are as follows. An American city terrorized by crazed flesh-eating killers. An unbelievable nightmare.
Okay.
I didn't believe it.
I didn't believe a word of that. Their rabid lust for human flesh created an epidemic of 5 people.
Yeah.
Rabid.
Oh my God. Yeah. It was the 5 people. That's the best part of that. Yep.
maybe playing off Cronenberg's Rabid that came out just a couple years before. I don't know. Word association.
Yeah, this movie's sucking off the teat of a lot of other movies. Okay. There are some things that are worse than death.
I think I've heard that before.
Yeah, like sitting through this film.
That doesn't make me want to go see a movie. It's like, you know.
Isn't that a line in the original Dracula?
Yeah, sure.
It's a line in a lot of movies.
Helsing.
Yeah.
Okay. When you think you've seen it all, think again.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Or look again.
Or as Mr. Rogers would say, when you think you've seen it all, think again. They're here, and they're coming for you. All of them, all 3 of them.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
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 POWs in Vietnam, starved in captivity, released with a taste for human flesh.
Yeah. Okay.
No mention of virus there. They're just hungry.
Yeah.
Well, they have a virus. Remember? Yeah. Oh, you mean on this?
In the tagline.
Oh, in the tagline.
Yeah.
Starved.
Yeah, that would have been better.
Yeah.
In the jungle or in the city, they still must eat.
Oh,
Sounds
no.
like my grandma.
That's the worst one. That's the silly.
Absolutely terrible.
It must eat.
That was horrible.
Okay, and that's been Taglines with Chad.
Yeah.
And now the Beatles, everyone. The Beatles.
Ring-a-ding-ding.
It was. I'll tell you where that comes from later. All right. First impressions. And this one is Chad's pick.
Oh.
Thanks, Chad.
Is it
Eric
really
Armando.
my pick?
Yes, it is.
It is.
Was it yours? For some reason, I thought it was Bill's.
Oh, it seems like something
let's
I
let
would
it be
do.
Bill's. Let's let
Well,
it be
it's
Bill's.
Italian. Or,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay.
And when you think Italian, you think Mulligan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
My first impression of this movie is I'd seen it before after I thought I had not seen this movie. So after I watched it, I recognized it, and I remember watching as a younger guy, and feeling like asking myself, who am I supposed to be rooting for in this film? Because I thought it was supposed to be John Saxon, and everybody just started acting crazy. You know, I can understand. I know he got bitten at the beginning, so he had the virus. But why did it take so long for it to manifest in him? There's all kinds of questions I have about this movie. Mm-hmm. I couldn't figure out whether it's supposed to be a horror movie or an allegory for guys that come home from Vietnam and feel, separated from society and outcast from society that just happen to be cannibals. It's a weird film story-wise. I didn't get the whole taking the girl hostage and running through the sewers. I didn't get a lot of it. I just didn't get it. And I still don't get it. Watching it now, I was still perplexed by what the hell was going on here. John Saxon I'm a big John Saxon fan. First ran across him in the old $6 Million Man TV show, and of course Nightmare on Elm Street movies and that kind of stuff. So I'm a big John Saxon fan, and he was good in this. I guess he was the best one out of all of them in this movie. I'm just perplexed by it. I can't believe this movie exists. Mm-hmm. But there it is. There it is.
I'm perplexed.
Yeah, it does.
What can I say? All right. Well, let's hear what Crystal thought of this movie. Was this the first time you've seen whatever the title is?
Mm-hmm. So, okay. I do love John as well. I think he's fabulous as an actor, and he did a great job in this. He does have a complete 180 in his shift in this, and it's like he goes from one, but then there's some fundamental things I have a real problem with this movie. For one, it's practically pedophilia. I have a real problem with that. I mean, that was disgusting, like super disgusting to me. I was like, what the heck am I watching? This is just creepy and weird. And I mean, she may be supposed to be of age, but she acts like a kid, and she has little celebrities up on her wall, and it's disgusting. So I was like, okay. So I was immediately kind of turned off by the movie. But of course, that first scene was hilarious. I mean, they did have flamethrowers, which I fully endorse flamethrowers in a movie. I'm all about that. And when he got bit, when he saw them, when he looked into that pit and saw them eating them, his face, I was dying. Okay. Yeah. So I got to admit that first scene had me cracking up. I was like, okay. But this movie is odd because tonally, it feels like it's really trying to be serious with this, you know, PTSD type cannibalism thing that they have going on. And conceptually, I kind of like it as a new take on zombies. They're not zombies, but they're kind of like zombies. It's kind of a cool concept, but then it has these moments like with this girl, and I was like, and with the scene in the movie theater. Look, I get a couple maybe making out, but her full on being, I was like, I don't have a problem with that in the movie, but this isn't street trash where it's like, you know, that's kind of its thing.
I don't know,
This is
Crystal.
like- it's like it doesn't know what it wants to be. I feel
That's
like
the way it
I
is
feel
in
like
Atlanta.
it's the way it is in Atlanta. Yeah, it feels like it's trying to be exploitative, but not. And so that's what's confusing to me. And I think that's what the hardest time I had with the movie. And I agree with Chad. I'm like, why are they trying to go back to the war? I don't get what they're doing. And this woman was kind of like their ally, and then she kind of became. Then they started completely mistreating. I was like, just gave me. It just was kind of gross at points. That's all. Yeah, but I mean, I'm glad I watched it. I mean, I hadn't seen it before, so it was something new, something fresh. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. Bill.
Okay.
You've seen this before.
I've seen this before, and I remember being a little confused it was not what I expected to be the first time. And now this time I knew what it was going to be, and I'm still I like Antonio Margheriti, the director. I can see why he's one of Quentin Tarantino's favorites, and he did some cool. He was a good director, but he kind of didn't specialize in any one thing. He did a lot of science fiction, low budget science fiction. He did some gothics. He did this. I don't think this was really where he needed to be. But I'm with Crystal. This movie feels to me like they wanted to make a Vietnam movie, and they couldn't get the budget for it or whatever. So someone said, well, we'd rather see horror. He's like, oh, did I mention that they've been infected with a virus that turns them into cannibals? Oh, no, that's great. Yeah, we'll pay for that. It felt like that horror element was sort of ball peen hammered into it. I don't know if that's the case or not. Maybe it's exactly what they meant it to be. You feel like there is a good premise for a movie trying to get out. But yeah, it's all over the place, and the characters didn't make a lot of sense. There was no one to root for. I guess maybe John Saxon's wife was a nice character, but she's just there to react as he goes. I don't know why it took so long for him to, what kind of virus is this? There's no explanation for why they got the virus. I would have understood these guys were in a cage and they were being starved, and somebody fell in there and they start eating them. Okay, I get that. And maybe that messes with their heads so they become zombies. But then introducing this virus element. And yeah, there's a lot of rabid in this one. I mean, that it's got that feeling only on such a tiny scale that you don't really get the sense of it's going all over the place and spreading around. But the idea that war, is like a virus, that it does come home, and just because you're not there in the battlefield doesn't mean you're going to escape it. That's an interesting premise, and I think they could have done something. And the story that I read is that that's what John Saxon thought they were doing. He read the script, it wasn't terribly well translated, and he got the feeling that the virus or cannibalism aspect was a metaphor. And then he goes out there and suddenly they show up with a tray of body parts that he's supposed to be noshing down on. And it's like, that's when I would fire my agent right on the spot. It led you astray. So
he did a great job, though. I mean,
I thought,
Well, and he stepped out of that scene, and Margheriti was fine with it. He said,
yeah,
that's fine.
Margheriti, even people who didn't like the films that they made with him, they seemed to like him. And I'll say this for the guy. He worked with Klaus Kinski 4 times. I mean, I think he and Werner Herzog are the only people who put up with that maniac more than once. So, he had to have the patience of a saint. He's an interesting director. And I guess he's more famous now from that scene in Inglourious Bastards where one of the characters pretends to be Antonio Margheriti and just goes on and on, repeats his name a bunch of times. Which I'm sure thrilled him to death. He died recently, actually. But, yeah. But yeah, so okay, this movie's kind of a mess. It really is.
Kind of a mess. Yeah. I won't argue with that. I have not seen this before, but I have seen. We did The Long Hair of Death from Margheriti on Classic Era, and then after we did that, I watched Castle of Blood because that also had Barbara Steele. Both of those have Barbara Steele in them, and they have some great scenes in them. You know, the storytelling's a little like a lot of the Italian movies, I guess. It's storytelling isn't really straightforward and fill you in on all the details. There's a lot of big cuts. But anyway, yeah, I hadn't seen this, and you know, it's actually pretty gory, even though it doesn't really part of it doesn't come off that way to me, you know, because there's all these other odd scenes in there. Love John Saxon. Love the effects. In general, I thought the acting was okay. It's always hard to tell. I think they were probably all dubbing. Even John Saxon was probably dubbing himself, I'm guessing. And I don't know who dubbed Radici. I've seen an interview with him, the guy that plays the greatest character name ever, Charles Bukowski. I mean, they don't even try to disguise it.
That's what I was like, what? I wasn't sure. I was like, what? I was like, okay. So,
and
thank you.
Saxon's name is Norman Hopper. Not exactly sure.
Yeah.
Could have been Hopper, Dennis Hopper.
Apocalypse Now. Yep.
Apocalypse Now. Anyway, this is again okay. So I said something last episode. I did buy the Blu-ray, and it's actually the stuff that's on there is kind of interesting. There's a like an hour documentary interview with it's kind of a rotating interview with John Saxon, Radici, and Margheriti. So it's pretty interesting to hear their different takes on it. So anyway,
is Radici John Morgan?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And he did a ton of stuff too. He's in. If you look at his credits, he's in. Yeah. We've done him in other movies. Mm-hmm. As we have the teenage girl. So the teenage girl. Well, I'm not going to talk about all that. So we'll get into that later. There's a lot of stuff in here that could bother a person, that could put you off. So we'll talk about that in a minute. The music is really crazy, and that was one of the things I got from the soundtrack. Oh, and Tim Lucas does the commentary.
That's probably worth the price right there.
He talks about the music. It's credited to Alexander Blanksteiner. Blanksteiner. But he said they did this thing where Italians kind of got into this thing where there was action. You didn't get what sounded like action tension music. You got funk. You know, it goes into this kind of strange strain of funk. So anyway, just to let people know, it's a decent. I think it's Kino Lorber. Came out a couple years ago. So there's a fair amount of decent information on there. All right, well, let's take a look at some of the other stuff Bill rounded up. And this is another one that posters galore. Cannibal Apocalypse.
Not a great poster.
Is that the doctor?
Yeah.
Or is that?
Yeah. I don't know. Of all the things they could have put on the poster, this sounds like the, you get that when the movie has this many titles, you kind of get the feeling it didn't quite hit, so they're just throwing stuff against the wall. And this looks like a detective thing, or this does not scream cannibals at me.
Well, you feel like it should be an apocalypse, like Dawn of the Dead or something, but it never really spreads that much, right? Mm-hmm. Like Chad was saying, there's just not that many.
It's a cannibal brouhaha.
A cannibal hootenanny.
Yeah, yeah.
That's Invasion.
Invasion of the Flesh Eaters.
Now I remember that poster. I remember seeing there must have been some DVR VHS releases that had that. I remember seeing it and thinking, I'm not impressed with that cover either.
And there's some decent...
I think that's horrible. And then nothing that it has like the most obscure taglines. It doesn't tell you anything. None of it. Yikes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this one now, it's kind of hard to tell, but I think what they're going for is when Charlie Bukowski gets his guts blown out by the police shotgun.
And an awesome effect, by the way. But yeah, this poster just makes it look like he's got a big smiling face in his stomach or something.
There's a big star, and the two cannibals in the pit are fighting over something. Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
Big sun.
And then this mess.
Virus was another one.
Gee whiz!
Can you believe?
I don't know. Is that Spanish? Yeah, I think so.
That's horrible, though. What are those hands? Like, what is?
Just.
It's so bad.
It's like somebody's churning out generic horror posters, and then they just throw titles on them.
Yeah.
Imagine the poor sap who goes to see 3 different movies, and it's all the same movie.
Oh, it's all the same, right?
God damn, that virus was terrible. I'm going to go see Cannibal in the streets.
This one's better. At least you can kind of get an idea of what it is.
Right.
Like you see the eye, you got the soldier. I mean, it's
definitely like
better.
the fire in this movie.
This one's going for a Night of the Living Dead vibe,
So we mentioned right away director Antonio Margheriti.
Look at
your
castle blood on there. Right.
You're an idiot if you go see
this is actually his last sort of horror movie. He said that he preferred doing action movies.
I can tell.
Because he says I found this really interesting. The way he looked at it, it was all sort of about logistics and camera placement and blocking and stuff like that. And you didn't really need really good actors because everything happened so fast. Was the way he put it.
Fair enough.
Anyway, Snow Devils. Oh,
Snow Devils. I like War of the Planets and Wild Wild Planet. I mean, they're very low budget, but they've got that cool pulp comic book kind of. Snow Devils is about Yetis as aliens,
cool.
which is and that's kind of cool. Okay, I mean, is the movie great? No, they're not great, but they move at a quick pace, and they've got lots of stock footage of spaceships and stuff. You know, it's just got an energy to it. So I like his stuff. But they're not. It's not Mario Bava. It's not Dario Argento. Right. It's not Lucio Fulci.
Maybe Your.
Well,
yeah. Well, now Your was made for TV, and then they just cobbled it together into a film, and it kind of shows.
The
poor
Red
Brown
has poor Red Brown. He is in Captain America, right?
Captain America.
That poster.
Long Hair of Death has some really interesting shots in it. You know, almost Bava-esque type scenes and shot compositions, but not. It didn't carry through to this. All right, and he was
a guy who directed a lot of movies, and he directed a lot of movies in a short time. So I mean, this is a guy he's putting food on the table by directing. I'm sure he put some of himself into his craft and everything, but he doesn't. You know, he's not someone who leaves his mark the way some directors do, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you still get some good movies out of it and everything. You know, people say, "Oh, you're a hack if you do that." It's like, let's be fair here. I mean, not everyone has the luxury of being able to spend 3 years to make a movie and make it a masterpiece that will live forever, because the audience probably doesn't care.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Navy Federal Credit Union. Our members are the mission.
Who's that?
That is something that is playing, and I can't hold on. I gotta go inside. I don't know why. There we go.
I love it.
I hope these people are paying us for that plug.
I was like, what the heck?
There's a thing on here that says, "Are there any paid promotions?"
Yeah, there is now.
So, am I saying that right? Dardano Sacchetti?
Yeah, sure.
Dardano, I don't know. He's everywhere. He is everywhere.
Yeah, look at the stuff this guy wrote.
This is all good stuff right here.
This is all better than this movie, so I don't know. You kind of
What
Fulci,
They-
was
they
Bava,
Zombie 2?
Argent-
Like, is
yeah.
that the poster they actually used the same poster?
I
It's
think so.
Zombie?
Yeah,
the Zombie 2 is the same as Zombie.
It's the same
They
as
call it
Zombie.
Zombie 2
yeah.
because it was supposed to be a sequel to, was it Night of the Living Dead or
Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn
Dawn
of
of
the
the
Dead.
Dead was
Dead.
called Zombie in Italy, so they had to call
Yeah.
this new movie unrelated Zombie 2.
Hmm.
But these are all great movies that we've
Okay.
done.
Yeah,
Except maybe
they are.
Demons. Have we done Demons?
No.
I don't think we have. I don't think we have.
I think a prior incarnation did it.
yeah,
Okay.
we need to
Talk
do it.
amongst yourselves while I look at it.
Because I think he also did Demons 2 as well. And these are all really cool films with some good stuff. Now, okay. Let's see, there's a Bava film, there's a Fulci film, there's another Fulci film, there's yet another Fulci film, and then there's I think that was Bava's son did Demons, right?
I
So
think so.
those
yeah.
are all done by directors who were the kind who did leave their stamp, their personal stamp on things more than Margheriti did.
Mhm.
Maybe that's the
They
difference.
did do this. They did Demons on episode 85, over 6 years ago. So
Wow.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, we burn through things fast here. But yeah, I mean, he's written some of my favorite Italian horror stuff.
I believe that we have done all of those. We've done episodes on all those.
Yeah, I think we have.
Zombie and A Bay of Blood on 70s, right?
Mhm.
Anyway,
So now we're scraping the bottom of the barrel for Mr. Sacchetti.
you know, it was kind of funny, I thought, in this documentary on the Blu-ray. Margheriti was talking about Sacchetti, and they just got done explaining his pseudonym, Anthony Dawson, and how they came up with it. I think it's like his last name in Italian translates to daisies, but
Okay.
Antonio
Daisies.
wasn't quite would give you the thing for horror or action
Right.
or something. So they came up with Dawson. But then he talks about Sacchetti and using the name Jimmy Gould, and those writers, they come up with such silly names, like as opposed to Anthony Dawson.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. He's sort of laughing about it. Anyway, Sacchetti is god dang. I mean, he's got 96 credits,
Wow.
but in the 80s, it's unbelievable. He's got maybe, I don't know, 15 or so in the 70s, but in the 80s, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. Big chunks.
Good time for him.
Demons 3, actually, and Demons 2. And
Wow.
so, all right. Well, that is our writer, and I'm not sure, he hooked a lot of people with this Vietnam War vet. People being traumatized by war was kind of the thing that sort of is a good hook and makes sense to people. You can make it a virus if you want, or the reality is more of a mental, emotional situation. But let's look at Mr. Saxon, because I thought what you said, Bill, was hilarious. He had no idea that this was going to be a cannibal thing. When they brought all this meat out on this tray, he was like, "What's that for?" And they're like, "Well, you're going to eat that." And he said there was actually like stuff that was supposed to be private parts on there, and he just went,
Yeah.
I'm out.
"I'm going to step out of this scene." And Margheriti says, "Yeah, that's fine."
Yeah, see, and that comes up in another thing too, that I think the actress, and I forget her name, the actress who played his wife, was also supposed to be part of a scene where she'd be performing a sex act on someone that would suddenly turn to cannibalism. I think you could see where it's going here. And she didn't want to do it. Who would? And they talked, Saxon and other actors just talked Margheriti out of it. And so Margheriti seems like a stand-up guy. It's like if his actors don't want to do something, it's like he's not going to push it here. There's
That's
enough.
good,
We don't
yeah.
need to. Yeah.
Okay, so you brought up the and I forget what her name is. I got to get on the right page here. The girl, the next door neighbor, Crystal.
Mary. Her name is Mary.
The actress was 20, I believe, but she was
Oh.
obviously supposed to be playing a teenager, I thought.
Oh, she looked like she was 14.
Oh, yeah.
when she was the day.
She wasn't coming across as that, and I don't think that was intentional.
And
Yeah.
she's coming on to him, and the way I took that was that somebody said something about why did it take him so long to come down to the virus? Because he had such force of character and ethics and principles that he was able to fight it off until finally these nightmares got the better of him. And then that's sort of what happens with her. He turns her away, but then it starts to overcome him. And the thing that was funny is when he goes down to her stomach, then he's telling the story about making the movie and how he was supposed to, he told Margheriti that he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't bite her. He wasn't going to do that. That was too sexual. And Margheriti finally said, okay, that's okay. So he said, so she never got bit. And I'm going, yeah, but Margheriti used the thing where he flashes to a scene where he doesn't need John Saxon around and shows her face going,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She definitely got bit.
She did. And she
said, yeah, she talked
she does
about
say
it.
that later. Because then when he's having this interview.
But she's there in her underwear and you can see her pubic hair.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's just a fact. And that's why I was like, you perverted old man. And he's not that old. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just like, ew.
He's not old, but he's still too old.
He's not old, exactly. But he's too old for a teenager. That's all. I'm like, no, ew, cringy.
Yeah, it was very cringy.
Well, in the movie, that's a common thing in Italian movies, right? I mean,
yes, it is.
It happens.
Right? Got a bunch of these little girl things, and then even little boys playing little girls, and then the boy, who's really the 27-year-old guy.
A lot of weird sexual stuff in Italian films.
Nursing on his mother's breast. I think that was.
Okay, what about what about Asia with her dad filming practically up her skirt?
Yeah, what about that?
So anyway,
he's like 12.
But
let's not even start with Japan.
John Saxon has been in a lot of landmark horror movies, actually.
Yeah, great.
Oh yeah, he's a legend, really. Yeah.
So what? I mean, what's the first one you'd think of?
Nightmare on
Elm Street would be the first one I'd think of. But,
I mean, hello, yeah.
But when I think of John Saxon, actually the first thing I'd probably think of is Enter the Dragon, which is not horror,
Bruce Lee.
One of the greatest.
And then right after that, he made Black Christmas.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes.
Another landmark.
Super influential. Yeah. He was a good actor. He had charisma. He's not a pretty boy, but
but he's very attractive.
Yeah.
Like he's super
masculine without being
he keeps
a different way.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that always bothered me about this movie is I thought we were going to see him play the hero for once, because usually he's playing jerks and stuff like that. So I thought this time we were going to really get to see him be the hero and save the day and all that. But no, he just joins up with this gang of cannibals, and it was that would just set me off. I didn't like that very much. I really wanted him to be a good guy in this movie.
I thought, it's weird. He was in from Dusk Till Dawn. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Dusk Till Dawn. He was in a Bava movie, The Evil Eye.
Evil Eye. He was in a Argento movie, Tenebrae. He was in Battle Beyond the Stars. He was great in that.
Mm-hmm.
He could have been. I will go with this. I think he could have been a good Han Solo, or a Han Solo type. He had that.
Oh, totally. Sure. Why not?
A likable rogue kind of look to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blood Beast from Outer Space and
Oh, that
Queen
wasn't
of
too
Blood.
Oh, yeah, he was in that one.
Queen of Blood. Isn't that the one with yeah.
I love Queen of Blood, but it's a terrible movie.
Anyway, so yeah, and he even says his, or maybe it's Lucas says that his philosophy was working. He wanted to work.
Yes.
So if he wasn't doing something and something came along, he took it. It wasn't so much. I don't know how much stuff he turned down. I'm sure he did, but
it's a vicious cycle too, because you probably don't turn down a lot. You're working constantly. You're making a good living. A better living than 99% of most actors and probably 95% of most Americans. You're doing well. You're doing a cool thing. People get to know you, but the price is when you start getting the reputation of being an actor who says yes to everything. You don't get asked to do those big roles that bring awards and stuff. It's just not likely to happen, which is unfortunate, but that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do? Keep saying no, and then even those people don't ask you after a while.
So he did lots of television episodes too, mixed in there, guest spots.
He's on like Fantasy Island 5 times as 5 different characters. They just every year they would have a John Saxon episode where he plays a new person, and nobody cared. I get the feeling if he'd maybe been alive earlier,
he's Italian too.
System. Oh, is he?
By the way, yeah, he changed his name.
Now
his name is Carmine.
Oh wow, can't get much more.
Yeah.
Lucas said somebody had recommended this to him, and he had seen it, and it was recommended to him as one of the best things they'd ever seen John Saxon do. It was an episode of Cimarron Strip, and it was the title of the episode was Screamer. And I have no idea. I don't see Cimarron Strip out there. There may be a way to find it someplace else, but well, no, I'm sorry. He played a character named Screamer. The title was Journey to a Hanging.
He's got a cool intensity. That middle picture, I think, shows it off well. He doesn't have to overact. He might even, people might look at this and say he's kind of underplaying the role and everything. But I think that works a whole lot better than eye rolling, going for the cheap seats.
I think the dude, the Bukowski dude, was very, very good though too.
Yeah,
John Morgan.
Yeah. Quickly, before we jump to John Morgan, Saxon said that at some point, at first he was horrified and really depressed about this, finding out this was cannibalism. But somewhere along the line, he figured out or learned about how this was a thing going on in Europe, and there was this huge market in, according to him, Japan and Germany. And another time he was told that, hey, your movie's doing great in South Korea. And he said, what movie? And it was this one, so.
Okay. So let's see. So Germany, Italy, and Japan. So the Axis powers like this sort of thing. Okay. Just good to know.
Yeah. All right. Let's look at John Morgan, whose real name is Giovanni Lombardo Radici, I believe.
Radici? I think it's what it is.
Radici. Yeah. So
I got 2 shots on the bottom from other films you may know him from. He gets the old head drill.
I mean, you can tell how good he is there. Look how crazy.
Oh, he's nuts. And then the bottom one is Cannibal Ferox. Have we done that one? Make them die slowly?
No,
I guess we'll have to one day.
He was in The Church.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He plays a sleazebag real well. He's in not Last House on the Left, but Last House on Dead End Street. Yeah, that's tough going there. He can go for the rafters.
Avi must have liked him because he did The Church and he did Stage Fright as well.
He was also in the Omen reboot.
Oh, really?
From 2006, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Now, I was surprised to find out that this is actually the first time I realized that he really was Italian. I thought his name was John Morgan. He was just another American actor who got taken up in all these Italian movies, but no.
Well, I'm not sure if he's got, we've talked about this before. If somebody, at least on Classic Hero, we've talked about it, of somebody actually getting a standard dubber. Like if you make enough Italian movies, you got a person who dubs you so that people recognize your voice. But he, in his interviews, he has a thick, he speaks English fine, but he has a thick Italian accent. So I'm sure he was dubbed in this. Anyway, yeah.
Really? Whoever dubbed it did a great job. I'm like,
you couldn't tell. Now maybe he could pull that stuff off. I don't know.
I'm really impressed.
Yeah, I thought the dubbing was actually really well done.
Yeah, me too. Especially for a super early 80s movie. Like,
right.
I mean, you could tell with the wife and stuff at points and things, but it wasn't, it felt more like it was dubbed so that the audio was nice and clear and crisp, not, to be.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know that we've done, once again, trying to find her name.
The young actress?
Yeah, it always throws me off. She was billed as Cindy Hamilton in the movie, but she also she was in Cat of Nine Tails.
Cinzia de Carolis.
Yeah, she was Carl Malden's daughter in Cat of Nine Tails.
Cat of Nine Tails. Oh, okay.
Is that the one where he was the blind?
Right.
Or am I off on that?
No, that's that. I believe that's correct. All these animals, giallos, tend to blend together after a while, but I think you're right. And she's good. I mean, she's got a great look. She's a fresh face. She can play obviously younger than she is. It's just unfortunately in this role, that's really cringy.
Well, when she started doing that with the freaking blow dryer, I was like, "Are you just not going to tell her to stop?" I mean, the whole thing was so awkward and weird. I was like, "She's clearly a child." Like, it's not even a question. She's like, and I'm like, come on, lady.
Yeah. You know better than that, John Saxon.
Yeah.
She played Helen Keller in an Italian TV miniseries in 1969.
Oh.
She was also a dubbing director.
Ooh,
wow,
that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That would be tough, I bet. Like
Tony King, I think, is kind of an interesting guy as well. He was an ex-football player.
He was good. He was scary.
Yeah. He was scary. He could do a scary, face. He was the one who looked the most zombified.
And I loved when he was like, "Oh, you're with us, Captain?" I was like, "Oh." Yeah, I guess. Like, let's go through
the sewers. I don't know what's the plan. We're gonna walk through the sewers back to Vietnam. But of all the things in this movie that are wrong, and just I hate rats. I really don't. I don't understand. I know there's people who keep them as pets. I don't get it for two reasons. They don't live long, so your heart's broken every 2 years, and two. And I really can't emphasize this enough. They're rats, but okay. Some of the best people I know keep rats as pets, so I don't have any love for rats whatsoever. I could not believe that they, and I know this was not a special effect. They roasted alive some rats.
Yeah,
we're used to talking about how no animals were actually harmed in the making of this movie.
What?
Can't
they
say
actually
that here.
Roasted rats
down in the sewer. Yeah.
There's
see
a
that rat on fire running.
There's a rat on fire and he jumps in the water, which shows they are somewhat intelligent because everyone else in this movie, when they get set on fire and they're in water, they're like, it's like dive in the water, you fool. But yeah, that was wrong. Yeah,
I didn't know that. I'm really.
There were a couple of them.
Really sad now. Oh, that's horrible.
Well, that and the you talked about
and the dog. The dog that blew.
But that wasn't real.
I'm pretty sure that was not real. Yeah. Okay, let's go with that. But Yeah, it was still.
Was it
Still,
real?
no.
If it was
it
real, I
wasn't.
hate this movie.
No,
I want this
no,
movie
it
to
wasn't
die.
real.
Like, I
No.
never want to talk about this
no.
movie again.
No,
Like,
and no, you wouldn't do. For one thing, it would probably cost more money to blow up a real dog than a fake dog. And if you really blew it up, there might be dog parts that would hit the actors. And so,
ooh.
no, I'm sure the dog was okay. But it just tells you this movie is like, okay, I know I'm watching a foreign movie if they kill children or animals in the first 5 minutes, because Americans just don't do that, you know.
Well,
I mean, we may not in films, we don't.
set
Croc looks
Vietnamese woman on fire with a flamethrower that then falls into the pit and gets eaten alive
Eaten.
naked. They're eating her charred.
Yeah. Well,
naked
I mean, at least
body,
she was
you know.
cooked.
She was cooked, yeah.
then. It wasn't raw meat, which is better.
Right.
Hopefully,
It's not like
the
they're a couple of
diseases,
weirdos.
you know. A
Apparently
little charred, and it's all right.
So these are,
you know.
These are some
Okay,
effects
so
from some of other
from other movies that may or may not have been done by Giannetto de Rossi, because Jeff and I were talking before we started filming here, and apparently there's Giannetto de Rossi and there's Gino de Rossi, who are not the same person, although sometimes they are credited as being the same person.
Yeah,
and I have a
are
feeling
not
that
related, and are not related.
And the one on the bottom right is Cannibal Holocaust, which I believe is not done by either Giannetto de Rossi or Gino de Rossi, but Wikipedia led me astray, as it so often does. So
that creature is horrible.
it's from
horrible.
Conan the Destroyer, and it wasn't that good, actually. But he is a talented effects person.
Yes.
That movie above, Crocodile, I think.
Oh, that top
Crocodile
is
too.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. He also well, actually, I don't know who to believe anymore. According to some sources, he also worked on Dune and a number of big budget stuff and everything. So, I mean, the effects in this are cool. I really like that shotgun blast where it cuts a hole in him. That was well done.
Oh, the eyeball was good. The eyeball was good.
Eyeball.
Yep.
Well, he did the what was it? The Stallone movie, Daylight, where they're trapped in the tunnel. Yeah, and supposedly he did this. He does this effect where Stallone tries to heal himself with gunpowder on some wound and fires. It must be a through and through because fire shoots out the back too at the same time.
Oh wow!
Stallone was impressed. Anyway, so this is weird because we started looking at this, and then it was Zombie, and then one of the other Fulci trilogy movies.
Yeah.
It's weird. They'll say, Giannetto de Rossi, and then it'll say billed as Gino de Rossi, or the other way around. And
oh my God,
sometimes it'll say this person uncredited,
and it may not be,
or credited but didn't do it. Credited only. That was another one. So I don't know. Maybe even the people doing the credits on the movies got mixed up sometimes.
So we don't know what's true. It'd be like watching a movie and it's like Crystal Cleveland billed as Bill Mulligan, and it's actually played by Chad Hunt. So, we don't know.
Might happen someday.
Good, totally.
So here's some of the
here's some gore.
Some of the
I really wanted to get a good shot of the shotgun, but I couldn't find any. They're actually
I had a hard time too.
Yeah.
Look, that middle part, like the way that scene, the way that they're looking up at him like busted, and the way he's
it looked like two little kids that stole the last of the
cookies.
Oreos in the room.
They got they broke the cookie jar, and it's like, we're gonna get a whooping.
That is like the funniest thing.
Oh no, it's the captain.
Like all of you listeners out there, if you don't watch this movie, fine, I don't blame you. But that first scene is a riot, and you should check that out. Yeah,
well, it's a good fire gag too. I mean, I'm not
it is
exactly
a good fire
sure
gag.
If that was like a insulated person with a mask on, but it sure looked good.
I mean, she is clearly wearing a fire suit, but that looks, I guess.
Oh yeah, because you could see her back was all big.
But it's also getting all over her head and everything, and you're like, this would be dangerous on a Hollywood set, and this ain't a Hollywood set. But I mentioned also the bikers. boy, is there a lamer biker gang?
Oh my God, I know.
These guys, I mean, it's like they just took a bunch of random people who didn't look anything like bikers, put them on bikes, and then they're like, go do some biker stuff. And basically, they're also stealing cookies from a cookie jar. They don't look.
What police force would allow
Thank you.
them to stand near the door that they're shooting at?
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, what are
Yeah.
you guys doing here? Yeah, we're waiting for that guy inside.
All right. Well,
So
we
just
might
a-
need some deputies.
Just to throw some stuff out, beginning and ending of Gianetto de Rossi's, one of his last films was High Tension in 2003.
That's a good one.
Oh, wow.
You've got Daylight, which I mentioned. He also did Rambo 3. Maybe that's the one with the gunpowder effect that he liked.
That does sound like something that was in a Rambo.
Dragonheart,
Dennis Quaid.
Killer
Quaid.
Crocodile,
Quaid.
King Kong Lives.
King Kong Lives. Oh,
And you mentioned Conan the Destroyer and Dune, the Atlantis Interceptors, which I think is like science fiction aliens from underwater or something. I could quite
You say
and
Ficken?
Let
Okay.
sleeping
Science
corpses
Oh,
lie.
that's see, that's a great one. But now I'm suspicious that he had anything to do with it. You know, but that is it's an awesome movie.
Anyway, just wanted to kind of finish that up. So we had that opening in Nam was kind of interesting. We get a lot of stock footage of helicopters flying. Apocalypse Now. We just didn't have the music to go with it.
Now I think Margheriti had just made a Vietnam action movie before
He did.
did this
He
one,
did.
so he got to use a lot of his sets over. Which the sets look like a bamboo cage in a cave. I mean, okay.
I kept expecting to hear Creedence, Fortunate Son playing over the helicopter.
Yeah. Right.
What else? It seemed like there was something else I was gonna. And then the end.
The end.
Will they look for Aunt Tina?
This is the end.
My only friend.
And that kind of reminded me of, so much of this movie reminds me of other movies. The ending of this just sort of reminded me of a little bit of Flesh for Frankenstein and Bay of Blood, where
Yes,
we see that the curse of the violence and horror is now passed on to the next generation, and
Yeah.
even the innocents are corrupted. So this
So
is kind
the
of the greatest
one,
hits of Italian movies.
the one cop lieutenant who was the chief's, that was kind of there with the chief all the time.
Yeah.
His son played the kid.
Oh.
Luca Venantini, who was in City of the Living Dead.
Oh, was he the little kid at the end?
City of the Living Dead, not.
Jesus, they all sound the same
all
to
have a
me
little
now.
kid.
I
They all
can't
have a little
remember
kid.
which
They all
one.
do.
I'm like,
City of the Living
City
Dead,
of the
House
Living
by
Dead.
the Cemetery.
House by the Living Dead, or
So it wasn't
whatever.
the little
you
kid
know?
in House
It's
by the
all
Cemetery.
same.
but
At the
City
end of the
Living
street.
Dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember it all.
So
I'll remember
anyway.
the movie though.
The house by the other house.
Yep.
The
For
house
real,
next to
though.
the other house on the left at the end of the
Yeah.
street.
And his dad's name was Venantino Venantini.
That's a cool name.
Venantino Venantini. Boy.
Yes. A guy with almost 200 credits.
I'm Bill Bilson.
Yeah. John. There was a basketball coach at Central Iowa named Maury John that was really famous, and his son's name was John.
John. Thanks, Dad.
Okay. So the cop, and we got this cop that I just want to mention because he was like, I got a lot of joy out of this character. I'm trying to think of Wallace Wilkinson. He was just pissed off all the time and slinging, what's the one thing he says? Ashes to ashes, shit to shit. That was one of his lines. I'm like, oh, what other kind of cliches?
He's this
do we
close
come
to
up with?
retirement, and he doesn't need this grief.
Oh God, not again!
Yeah.
Cannibal.
He reminded me of the cop in Living Dead at the Manchester Morgue. Just tough, grizzled, not a nice guy.
Yeah, he does kind of.
Again, who are we supposed to root for here? It's like
Right.
And I seriously think that's a flaw in a lot of productions that, at some point you got to remind yourself the audience wants someone to root for. They don't have to win. Maybe they die. It's a horror movie after all, but give us, we shouldn't be rooting for everyone to die.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Well, it seemed to me like the filmmakers really liked fire, because we got a flamethrower at the beginning. We got a flamethrower in the sewers. And we had a Molotov cocktail in the middle of the motorcycles. The bikers
and
threw it.
Think about that. You're trying to get a bunch of people who are on the run, on the lam, as it were, and they're armed and everything. I understand you go in there with guns ablazing, but what cop force on earth is allowed to go in with flamethrowers aflamin'? Who does that?
I don't know, but it was cool. Too bad for the
Atlanta
rats.
cops. Basically.
Oh wow.
And then there was the again, Crystal, same thing, that opening scene, the grenade, where the guy does the patented gymnastics flip over the
bushes. Yes, it looks like he took it looks like he was on
one of those little tramps.
The tramp. It was actually really nice. I was like, oh,
it's very well done.
That's nice. It's a nice little turn. Oh god, it's a riot.
So we had the
I love that stuff.
We had the chewing on the burned Vietnamese woman who falls into the pit. We got the biting off of the doctor's tongue, and then spits it out on the floor. Then there was the cop in the lunchroom who literally like seconds before was talking to the captain and seemed perfectly normal.
He rips off the woman's breast, I think. Was that?
It looked like
that might be what it. Yes. Put that thing down.
That was a good line. Oh, man.
And then when they're fighting the bikers, there's one where he's like, instead of gouging his eye out, he's looks like he's pushing it in or something. That was kind of a weird one. Flame throwing live rats, and then the woman who's so put upon, the nurse that's actually one of the cannibals, but doesn't seem to really be part of the crew. She has a rat crawling up her skirt
I saw
at
that.
the end of that scene. And then we got that hole through Charlie. So lots of gore. And then, but yet at the end, we just can't show us. We don't know for sure, but we think John Saxon euthanized his wife and then kills himself. 2 shots ring out.
Right. Might have just shot her twice, but no, that's the implication is pretty heavily that and then we think, it's over. It's never over.
And then we see that shot. This is our super spoiler.
Yeah.
The 2 kids next door
look like they be related, though.
They do. Know? They actually do look like they're related.
Well, they look for Antina.
Like 12.
And you see the refrigerator behind him is open and there's a hand hanging out.
Yeah. Well, Aunt Tina was a hag anyway.
Well,
she was a horrible person.
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't care about her. Once again.
But she's delicious. Apparently.
A little tough.
The cop's got one line where he says, Don't say it, Doc, just don't say it, because I'm real sensitive on Fridays and there's no telling what I might do.
Okay.
That was the kind of lines that he had.
Yeah.
The doctor tries to explain it. It's like rabies.
Except
it's like the movie Rabbit.
You bite them, it's contagious.
It's like it mutes. It's like a virus, but it mutated, and there's a psychic element. He says in one point.
So these guys, they got the virus because they were put in a cage. I mean, it's not like this was bio warfare, and it was just bad luck.
We have no idea when they got the virus. Maybe they're in the cage because they have the virus.
So maybe John Saxon was right. Maybe it was a metaphorical virus after all. I don't know. At some point, it came to life. Are we overthinking
Final
this? Are we
thoughts?
putting more
Anybody?
thought
Yes.
into this than the
Yeah, we're
scriptwriters?
way overthinking it.
Yeah.
Final thoughts?
Bleh.
Well,
I mean, I'm still glad I saw it. It
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
you know.
I mean, come on.
2 times
John
in one
Saxon.
lifetime for me was too much.
Well, this is just one for me, so
Right.
no problem.
One and done for Crystal.
Well, I saw a quote from a review from AllMovie that says the highlight of the film was John Saxon noting that, quote, no matter how bizarre or sleazy the premise becomes, Saxon plays the material straight and delivers a serious, well-crafted performance that makes it possible to stick with the film's strange premise.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like we said, he works a lot, but he also never dumped on the movie that he was in
Yeah.
or showed it. You know,
Good.
I mean, he was.
That's
That
true.
shows his
That is-
professionalism. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's true. You can see sometimes you look at these filmmakers, these actors, and I can't blame them for this, but they've got that Galaxy Quest look on their face. How did it come to this? You know, what unfortunate choices did I make that have led me to here? You know, and it's sad. It's sad when you see that. And he's just, you know, hey, I'm working today. I'm going to work tomorrow, and
Mhm.
maybe I'll do Nightmare on Elm Street. Who knows? You know, you keep making crap horror movies, and then eventually, boom, one of them comes along, and it actually isn't crap.
Well, he's well loved by the horror community
yeah.
and,
Yep.
and sci-fi community.
Well, and Black Christmas and Nightmare on Horror Street were both seminal horror movies. You know, that were kind of ahead of their time and created something that.
Oh yeah, so I mean, John Saxon will always have a role, you know, a certain status among us, and he's no longer with us, but he made some movies that we love, and he was good in them, and like you say, he never crapped on those films and tried to pretend he didn't make them or anything. Some I'm sure he loved more than others, and horror fans are loyal. You know, you show us a little bit of respect, and we return it in spades. So at least he lived long enough to know that he was a well-liked, popular figure in the horror community.
Exactly, and he actually talks about that in that interview on the Blu-ray. One of the things he brings up is, much to my surprise, you find out there's all these people that are just absolutely love these movies. And can't stop talking about the new additions and the extras and all the stuff that goes in them, and you know, he's just sort of like, you know, surprised and etc. Right. All right, we have holy cow. Final thoughts went on. We got a ton of feedback, but we won't be able to do them all, so we'll just kind of start off and do what we have time for. We could take. I don't want to take the whole time for Jerry's thing.
There we go.
All right. Let's start with anybody wants to go first. Chad, you want to do the first one on episode 195, Razorback?
Sure. Adam Dallas says, nice review, guys. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Adam.
Nice
Adam
and to the
Dallas. That's a nice name.
Now, this one I need to cut, and I'm going to cut this in half because he actually commented twice. That's why it's so long. Episode 213, The Deadly Spawn. Let me see here.
This is Mikey Z.
Yeah, but he says something at some point. He says, like I've said before. Yeah, okay, so I'll start it off here. Mikey Z, Deadly Spawn, one of those films in the 80s VHS video store days that I generally avoided due to its low budgetness. Bad decision on my part. Saw this in the 2000s and totally enjoyed it. Low budget, highly imaginative in terms of effects that are effective. Yes. Mm-hmm. I've previously described this as Little Shop of Horrors, Audrey 2 on acid. The tea party scene for me was a highlight. I think I was all in with that too. I didn't remember the last shot until I resaw this before your podcast. Great WTF hilarious moment. This film is totally reminiscent of the bee invasion films of the 50s. It is.
It is, yeah.
Great podcast. Grue-Crew, love you guys. You are the best.
Love you too.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Mikey.
And now we're on to Crawl, and I'm going to read this first one because this is a friend of mine who I don't think would probably say she's a horror fan, but Crawl, Dawn Eyestone says, one of my childhood faves, which we were kind of finding that out, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I told her I wish I'd seen it in my childhood, but
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Bill, how about this next one?
J. Bart, I'd love
Yep.
you to do Excalibur, and I would
Me
love to do
too.
Excalibur.
That's one of my very
Yeah.
favorite movies of all
You
time.
Me
guys
too.
bring that up every time we do like Clash of the Titans or
Yeah,
this
yeah.
one.
I love it.
So yeah, I told
Excalibur
them
has
we will-
some good stuff in it. Really good
Yeah.
stuff.
It's really just going to be if it's going to be streaming somewhere.
Yes. As soon as it's streaming, we're gonna do it. It just never shows up.
I'll take this one as just real short. Saria Williams, I just subscribed. I wish I knew about this channel. Yay.
Yay!
Hey, welcome.
You just
Saria.
go back.
Now you
subscribing.
know about it.
Now you
Saria.
know.
Awesome.
Now you got how many?
So
and that
What
was
nice.
episode number was
Makes
this
me happy.
today?
215.
Today?
Oh, today was
No,
216. Yeah.
Oh, yay.
Saria's got some. She's got a hobby now.
You got some catching
Listening
up
to
to
us.
do.
Yay.
Yeah.
That makes me
Yeah.
happy.
All right,
Great to have
Crystal. Chad White.
Chad
This is also
White.
Crawl.
Yay. And see, Chad had some feedback on H&R too that we recently read. So, Chad, I see you. I see you. Okay. I owned this movie on VHS when I was young and watched it several times. I think I always think of the spider scene when I think of this movie. Me too. It was so creepy and cool at the same time. I remember this movie being fantasy, but I watched Kroll recently and I had totally forgotten that the antagonists were aliens and they shot lasers. Mind blown. Yeah, I kind of didn't realize all that much that they were aliens when I was younger as
Right,
well. It's
right.
kind of a horror though. The spider scene to me is absolutely
Yeah,
horror.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
for sure. So it's
Spiders,
got some of everything.
changelings, quicksand. That's
Got black eyes. There's lots of
Ooh, spoopy.
All right.
squish.
Where are we at
cyclops.
here? Evil Genius.
Evil Genius. I'll do Evil
Bill?
Genius. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, I do agree with the various critiques brought up. I totally agree, particularly the lack of glaive action after all the buildup. My 10-year-old self made very much the same comment. I felt like the kid from The Princess Bride when he learns that there was kissing in the story. Power of love? No, eat glaive.
Yeah, for real.
That does not change the fact that I absolutely love this movie. Talking about Excalibur, I know that post-Roman Empire Britain did not have plate mail armor. I still love Excalibur. In 1983, my friends and I caught the Dungeons and Dragons bug. This movie and all those other great early 80s fare, A Tour, The Fighting Eagle, The Sword and the Sorcerer, The Beastmaster, Conan the Barbarian, etc. They all
What
made
about
the
Dragon
rounds.
Slayer, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They all made the
Mhm.
rounds in my
Mhm.
cohort of friends. These movies have a very warm place in my heart, although I was still traumatized when I learned what a glaive actually was, a halberd-like pole arm. Cool in its own right,
Hmm.
but it wasn't no super ninja star.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, a
it's
glaive
true.
is a real thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not anything you're a hero's going to weld. That boatload of cash brought Krull one thing: pure, unadulterated grandeur. The James Horner soundtrack is pure majesty. The sets are immersive. The actors were great and well directed. This is a good movie that could have been a great movie. To use a football analogy, they had a game managing quarterback in there and not the clutch quarterback. For all that cash, they had Trent Dilfer in there when they should have had Tom Brady in at director. Wow, this is way over my head, but it sounds persuasive. And yes, I played Krull in the arcade and even had the Atari 26 port. Good times.
And we'll pretend it's not the Tom Brady that recently just had a fit. I mean,
Oh,
it's cool.
Oh, thanks, guys. And I'll tell you what, we really have to probably close
yeah.
because, but
We
just
have to stop.
Jerry Chandler has like
Jerry, we're gonna have
1,000
to hit you next time.
1,000.
He's written a book. Yeah, he's written
Yeah.
a book.
Yes.
Oh my god!
like 1,000 words,
Yes.
Oh my god!
and
I
it's
love
good.
it.
It's good stuff.
Oh, it
good
is. It's
stuff.
great
So,
stuff. But it's-
it'll be fun to read, but we just flat out.
You guys know you're encouraging him, right? But
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I love
I just-
Jerry.
It's-
I'm
it's a
just
great-
letting him
it's a
know
great
we
letter.
are gonna.
If it were just a little bit longer, it'd be almost perfect.
All right.
No, see, now that's encouraging.
Shush.
That's
Shush.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, Grue Believers, that's it for this episode. But every 2 weeks, we'll be focusing on a specific film release between 1980 and 1989. Next up, we tackle one chosen by me. A little different from this one. Lady in White.
Oh, yeah.
Lady in White, 1988. Almost like a family type horror movie. So maybe watch it for Halloween or something. Anyway, it's on Shudder now. So check it out. I just watched it again recently and was surprised. I thought it held up pretty good, even though there aren't really any surprises, but it's still scary. All right. Lady in White. Plenty of ways to stay in touch with us. Please send feedback to feedback@gruesomemagazine.com, or even better yet, leave comments on the Gruesome Magazine YouTube channel and subscribe. Please subscribe.
Yep.
We do have a goal. We're shooting. It's a modest goal.
5,000.
We're only shooting for like 5,000 subscribers. We know that the length of our podcast is not the kind of thing that, it's not 5 to 10 minutes. So, but if you dig the stuff, if you dig these movies, hopefully we're talking about stuff that's interesting.
Even still, subscribe. It's free.
Yeah.
Just push a button and you'll help us out.
Okay.
Just do it.
Like, make comments, blah, blah, blah. All right. We also have a Facebook page where we, people post stuff at. So, and we're always looking for suggestions.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Shoot us
and
some
comments.
of
I love oh my God, comments make me so happy.
All righty. Yes. Catch us again here in 2 weeks for another great horror movie in the 1980s, as only decades of horror can do it. Thank you so much, everybody, and say good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Gruesome Magazine.